In a world that thrives on deception and betrayal, there are those who walk among us set apart, the chosen ones. Marked by divine favor and a purpose greater than themselves, they often find themselves misunderstood, targeted, and betrayed by those closest to them. But the time of silent endurance is over. This is the story of divine justice. The hidden whispers, secret plots, and masked intentions that once circled the chosen ones have been fully exposed by the hand of God. Every lie, every scheme, and every plan meant to destroy them has been brought into the light. Now, the tables have turned. God has not only revealed the truth, but served judgment to those who plotted in darkness. What was once hidden has been shattered by revelation, and those who sought to harm the chosen are now forced to face the consequences of their actions. This isn't just a tale of betrayal, it's a testament of divine protection, exposure, and vindication. The chosen ones have been seen, and heaven has answered. The truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deeply it's buried. For the chosen ones, life has often been a series of spiritual battles fought in silence. Their hearts pure, their intentions good, yet they have continuously been misunderstood, targeted, and underestimated. People around them, some friends, family members, colleagues, or even partners, have smiled in their faces while secretly plotting their downfall behind closed doors. These hidden agendas were designed with precision, camouflaged in kindness, and laced with manipulation. But what these deceivers fail to account for is that the chosen ones are never truly alone. They are seen, guided, and covered by divine eyes that miss nothing. For so long, the chosen ones endured betrayal without retaliation. They walked through seasons of confusion, emotional pain, and spiritual warfare, not always understanding why certain people turned cold, why support was withdrawn, or why slander seemed to follow them without cause. Many cried out in prayer, asking God for clarity, for discernment, for truth to be revealed. And God heard them, not just their words, but the quiet groans of their soul. He watched as they were set up to fail, sabotaged by those they trusted. He saw the envy hidden beneath compliments, the curses disguised as concern, and the sabotage masked as advice. And then, the shift began. God, in His perfect timing, began exposing everything. Not with drama, but with undeniable clarity. He started revealing true hearts through small incidents, unexpected slip-ups, contradictions, and sudden confessions. What had been carefully covered was now unraveling. Texts were read, conversations were overheard, secrets were confessed by the very ones who carried them. The spiritual fog lifted, and the chosen ones began to see with divine discernment. The friends they once leaned on revealed themselves as opportunists. The mentors they trusted exposed their own hidden jealousy. Even relatives began to show their true intentions when they realized they could no longer manipulate or control the chosen one's path. But it wasn't just about seeing who was who. It was about understanding why it happened. The enemy doesn't waste time attacking those who carry no weight. The chosen ones were targeted precisely because of their anointing, their light, their potential to disrupt darkness. That divine favor made them a threat to those who operated in secrecy. Many couldn't handle the chosen one's authenticity, their resilience, or their growing influence. Instead of humbling themselves and aligning with truth, they chose deception, trying to dim a light they didn't ignite. God exposed these agendas not to stir hatred in the hearts of the chosen ones, but to release them from false bonds. To free them from spiritual entanglements that were draining their energy, stunting their growth, and contaminating their peace. He allowed the exposure to bring revelation, not revenge. But with revelation came undeniable proof. Suddenly, the narratives that once painted the chosen ones as the problem fell apart. The gossip lost its grip. The lies crumbled under the weight of truth. And those who orchestrated harm were left speechless as their intentions were laid bare. The exposure didn't just come externally. God also worked inwardly, sharpening the intuition of the chosen. He made them more sensitive to energy shifts, subtle warnings, and divine red flags. What once went unnoticed now felt like thunder in the spirit. The silence of God was never absence, it was observation. He watched patiently, knowing the perfect moment to reveal what needed to be seen. And when He moved, it was decisive and undeniable. People who once operated with confidence in the shadows began to grow anxious. Their peace was disrupted. What they thought would remain hidden began to surface in unexpected ways. The very plans they made in secret became the traps that exposed their own hearts. God didn't just allow the truth to come to light, He orchestrated it. He aligned events, conversations, and revelations in a way no one could deny. The same mouths that lied about the chosen ones were now tripping over their own words. The same hands that worked against them were now exposed, trembling in accountability. And through it all, the chosen ones stood firm, not with pride, but with clarity. They no longer doubted themselves. They no longer questioned their worth. The exposure gave them validation, not from man, but from God Himself. It proved that what they felt deep inside wasn't paranoia, it was discernment. That gut feeling they ignored was divine protection trying to speak. The dreams they had, the unease they felt, the spiritual heaviness that followed certain people, it all made sense now. With every exposure, chains broke. The chosen ones were no longer emotionally tied to manipulators, no longer obligated to entertain pretenders. The emotional manipulation lost its power. The psychological games stopped working. The fog of confusion lifted, and with it came freedom. Real freedom, the kind that isn't dependent on people's approval or understanding. God used exposure not just to show who was against the chosen ones, but also to cleanse their environment. To make space for genuine connections, divine alignments, and relationships built on truth. No more half-hearted support. No more hidden competition. No more spiritual parasites draining their energy. This exposure was a purification, a divine reset. And though it came with pain and disappointment, it also came with purpose. Some of the people who were exposed were unexpected. They were people the chosen ones would have never doubted. That's what made the revelation so jarring. But God knew what needed to be revealed for the chosen ones to step into the next level. He knew who couldn't go where they were headed. He saw the sabotage waiting just beyond the surface and dismantled it before it could strike. And even when it hurt, the chosen ones began to understand that this was not punishment, it was protection. There was no need to argue, to confront, or to retaliate. The exposure spoke louder than any confrontation could. And God made sure that every hidden agenda was revealed with precision, leaving no room for confusion. The more the chosen ones stayed aligned with truth, the more the lies unraveled. The more they kept their hearts pure, the more God fought on their behalf. And what was once a season of silence became a season of revelation. The veil was lifted, the masks were removed, the truth was undeniable. When hidden agendas are exposed, the natural consequence that follows is judgment. Judgment not in the form of vengeance from man, but divine justice from God Himself. The chosen ones, who endured in silence while surrounded by wolves in sheep's clothing, are now witnessing the reversal of every evil intention that once loomed over their destiny. God does not take lightly the pain inflicted upon His chosen. He is a just God, and when He moves, He makes sure that every crooked path is made straight, every falsehood is torn down, and every assignment of darkness is cancelled with authority. For too long, the enemies of the chosen ones operated with arrogance. They believed they could manipulate circumstances, create chaos, and tarnish reputations without consequence. They used charm to deceive, influence to oppress, and fear to control. But God, in His divine timing, allowed them to dig their own graves with their actions. What they thought would elevate them by stepping on the shoulders of the chosen ones became the very thing that caused their fall. God reversed the curses. He turned the weapons they formed back on them. Every plan that was meant to sabotage the chosen ones is now being unraveled with divine precision. It didn't happen all at once. Judgment often comes in stages, and those stages are undeniable. First, there was a shift in the spiritual atmosphere. The once confident deceivers started to feel the weight of what they'd done. Their peace vanished. Their plans fell apart. Their alliances crumbled. Confusion entered their camp. Things stopped working in their favor. The same manipulations that used to control others lost their grip. People they once used as pawns began to turn away from them. Doors began to close. Opportunities dried up. The same voices that once cheered them on now questioned their integrity. This wasn't karma. This was divine justice. God doesn't forget. He doesn't miss anything. While the chosen ones remained quiet, their cries reached heaven. And heaven responded with judgment, not the kind that destroys randomly, but the kind that serves each person exactly what they've sown. For every lie told, truth was revealed. For every setup, a reversal took place. For every false witness raised against the chosen ones, exposure became their portion. And not only were their plots exposed, but their intentions were weighed, and the spiritual scale tipped in favor of the righteous. God doesn't judge based on appearances or performance. He judges the heart, and in this season, He has been dealing with hearts that refuse to repent, hearts filled with jealousy, bitterness, and ambition at the cost of others. The very people who smiled in public but planned destruction in private have had their masks removed. And when the mask came off, judgment followed swiftly. Some were publicly embarrassed. Others lost their platforms, their credibility, their influence. The positions they thought were untouchable became vulnerable. Because when God moves, no one can stop him, not influence, not money, not strategy. For the chosen ones, this judgment wasn't about revenge. It was about divine order. What had been twisted was being made right. Their name, once dragged through the mud, was now being lifted without them lifting a finger. God himself became their defender. He dealt with the whispers, the lies, the false accusations. And those who once stood against them found themselves trying to explain their actions, grasping for justification that no longer held weight. Because when God reveals the truth, it comes with a finality that silences every argument. The reversal of evil intentions didn't just stop at exposure. It extended into full restoration for the chosen ones. What was stolen from them, be it peace, opportunities, relationships, or clarity, began to return multiplied. The more the enemy tried to take, the more God restored. The people who tried to block blessings became stepping stones for even greater ones. What was once delayed is now arriving in accelerated time. Because God doesn't just expose the enemy, he elevates the faithful. And for the ones who conspired, they are now facing consequences they never prepared for. The same darkness they sent out now surrounds them. The confusion they sowed has now settled in their minds. Their ability to manipulate others has vanished, and what's left is the bitter fruit of their own decisions. Some are facing isolation, others are experiencing personal losses. Their plans for advancement have hit spiritual roadblocks, not because of coincidence, but because judgment has been decreed from above. And no one escapes a divine decree. The chosen ones are not celebrating the downfall of others. They are simply witnessing the justice of God. They are reminded that when you walk in truth, you don't need to fight every battle. God fights for you. They are learning that elevation comes not from retaliating, but from staying faithful, obedient, and quiet until God says move. And now that he has moved, everything is changing. The enemies are silent. The schemes are dead. The atmosphere is clean. This season has taught the chosen ones that not every delay was denial. Some setbacks were divine pauses to allow God's justice to be fully released. Some rejections were necessary to prevent connections with people who would later become liabilities. And now, as judgment is falling on the wicked, the chosen ones are rising, not in pride, but in truth. Their steps are ordered, their path is cleared, and those who once laughed at their struggle are now watching in confusion as divine favor sets them apart. Judgment is not always loud. Sometimes it's subtle, a loss of peace, a failure of plans, a spiritual heaviness that can't be shaken. But the chosen ones know what they are witnessing. They see it, they feel it. They recognize that the same people who tried to destroy them are now experiencing the fallout of their own choices. And even though they didn't lift a hand against anyone, the justice of heaven fought on their behalf. The reversal of evil intentions is one of the most powerful manifestations of God's sovereignty. It proves that no weapon formed will prosper, not because the weapon won't be formed, but because it will be divinely dismantled. It proves that no matter how dark the plan, light always wins. The enemies had their season, but it was short-lived. Their access is denied, their power is broken, and the chosen ones are walking out of the storm into divine protection, surrounded by the evidence that God does not play about his own. Vindication is not something the chosen ones sought in the eyes of people, it is something that was granted to them by divine authority. After seasons of being overlooked, betrayed, and misunderstood, the time has come when God has begun to publicly confirm what he had privately affirmed in them all along. The ones who were mocked for their silence, criticized for their boundaries, and isolated for their light are now being recognized, not by chasing validation, but by walking in alignment with the truth. What others tried to bury has grown roots. What they tried to silence now speaks louder than ever. The chosen ones have always carried something different, something sacred. It was never about status or appearance, it was about essence. From a young age, many of them sensed they didn't quite fit into the environments they were placed in. They were often the peacemakers, the empathic ones, the ones who carried wisdom beyond their years. That uniqueness was seen, and often resented. People around them recognized the light in them before they even understood it themselves. That light made them targets. Not because they were doing anything wrong, but because the purity of their spirit made others uncomfortable. Their authenticity exposed the insecurities, jealousy, and manipulative tendencies in others. In times past, they were treated like afterthoughts. Their ideas were stolen, their kindness was taken for granted. Their names were used, but their worth was dismissed. Still, they remained loyal, thinking that love could change hearts, or that patience would eventually earn them respect. But what they didn't know then was that some people were never meant to honor them. Some were only there to delay, distract, or disguise. Yet through every false connection, God was teaching, molding, and preparing the chosen ones for a moment where no one would be able to deny their divine covering. That moment has come. God is now lifting the veil. Those who whispered lies are now forced to witness truth. Those who rolled their eyes at the chosen ones are now seeking their insight. Those who tried to shut doors are now watching as even greater doors swing wide open, not by man's recommendation but by divine appointment. This is vindication, not in arrogance or retaliation, but in quiet, undeniable favor. The kind of vindication that cannot be manufactured. The kind that speaks even when the chosen ones remain silent. God is doing what words never could. There is something powerful about watching someone rise who was once cast aside. And that's exactly what's happening. The people who overlook the chosen ones are realizing they misjudged them. Not because the chosen have changed who they are, but because God has decided it's time to reveal who they've always been. The strength they gained in private is now showing in public. The humility that was once seen as weakness is now shining as wisdom. The endurance that kept them going through betrayal is now being honored with influence. Everything that was ridiculed is now being respected. Vindication doesn't always come through applause. Sometimes it comes through the quiet conviction others feel when they see that you're still standing, still pure, still blessed. It comes when people have to swallow their own words, not because you corrected them, but because God exalted you. And for the chosen ones, this season is filled with those moments. The same rooms they were excluded from are now requesting their presence. The same voices that spread rumors are now falling silent. The same people who tried to make them feel small are realizing the weight they carry. There's a spiritual shift taking place, and it's favoring those who remained faithful through the fire. Many of the chosen ones went through years of trials that seemed unfair, loss after loss, betrayal after betrayal. But those trials were the refining process. God used every rejection to redirect them. Every closed door was protection. Every moment of isolation was preparation. And now that they're stepping into the season of fulfillment, it's clear that their journey wasn't for nothing. Every tear they cried watered the soil for the harvest now appearing in their lives. This isn't just a personal vindication, it's spiritual. It's a demonstration of what happens when someone keeps their heart clean in a world full of hidden agendas. The chosen ones could have retaliated. They could have exposed their enemies. They could have defended themselves with anger. But instead, they waited. They prayed. They stayed true to their path. And that obedience is being rewarded. Their lives are becoming evidence that God honors the humble, lifts the lowly, and protects those who walk in truth. The same people who tried to stop them are now seeing they were never the source. What they withheld, God replaced. What they ruined, God restored. The positions, relationships, and opportunities they tried to block are now being handed to the chosen ones with greater impact. And not out of pity, but out of divine alignment. Because when God says it's your time, no one can say otherwise. Vindication from God is the ultimate response. It settles every question, silences every critic, and restores every loss. People who once saw the chosen ones as naive now recognize them as wise. Those who viewed their patience as passivity now see it as strength. And those who tried to control them now understand they were never in control to begin with. God was always in charge. He allowed the fire to test their heart, but he never allowed it to consume them. He let the arrows be shot, but he didn't let them land. He watched the betrayal happen, not because he didn't care, but because he knew vindication was coming. In this season, the elevation is undeniable. It's not built on performance, connections, or manipulation, it's built on purity, endurance, and obedience. The chosen ones are being honored in ways that don't just elevate them but reveal the hand of God on their lives. Their presence carries a weight now. Their voice carries authority, not because they sought it, but because they earned it in the quiet place where no one was watching. Vindication is not loud, but it is powerful. And now, every person who doubted them must face the reality that the ones they tried to break are the ones God chose to build.